the 24th of November 2022. This issue of migrants has really gripped the channel, and I have to deal with it when it's hot and try and do the best I can with it. My new subscribers are very welcome, and please bear in mind that I won't always be giving out. There'll be videos on more happier things and you can pick and choose, but this is still on the migrant emergency. Now, the reason I use the word emergency is we're told by the Greens that there's a climate emergency, and by our media there's a climate emergency, which I don't believe there is. Well, I think we have a migrant emergency, and when I touched on it on this channel, look at the interest I've got and all the comments. Now, one of them is by there's a poster there. Makes the point that he says, you're not an Irishman at all, you're an Englishman. Well, I know from Edward Lycett's book on the Irish names, I'm O'Warchine, and I know from tradition handed down that we were the foot soldiers of the O'Neills in Ulster. We were driven out and we had to come south. We were dispossessed, and my family always said that O'Neill was cowardly to flee, and I don't agree with that. I think he was simply totally outnumbered. So it's not the reason I mention about my Irish nationality is this: if I were English or Scottish or French or anything else, they would not let me away with my campaign that say you're only a blow-in, you're only a blow-in. There's nothing wrong with being an Englishman, or nothing wrong with being a French woman or anything else, but you couldn't stick your head up. You see, I have that bit of authority to face down these creeps. That's where I'm coming from. It's not that there's anything wonderful about my Irish ancestry. It's that, in fact, I've made videos about the Irish, on that. So that's my point. When you take on the woke, cultural Marxist left, they will fight you tooth and nail, and they'll use every weapon at their disposal to beat you. I've been locking horns with them on social media for nearly 15 years, and I know what they are made of. So anyway, this is just a little more on this, and to be fair about Sinn Féin and everything else, and give you my views. Like violent Irish nationalism, that was up to the independence, was never Marxist. It was never communist before we got independence in 22. But there again, the concept of communism was very young at that stage. And then when the concept of communism came in, Irish violent republicanism, not Irish, I'm an Irish Republican, but Irish violent republicanism, it turned very much for the communist agenda. And I think they just saw this book written by Charles Engels and Karl Marx and all this, and they fell for it like many others did. Now, don't forget, the first thing the Polish people told me when they arrived here about 20 years ago was that the country was destroyed by communism. The communist Russian influence there left. There was no food or anything. It was a horrible place. The country will take a generation, and maybe two, to get better from it. So I have no time for communism, and that's that. So I think that may be the reason, but I'd like the Sinn Féiners to answer this question. Now, so I said that there was no concept, you see, before that, but James Connolly, of course, was one of them. He was one of them. So Sinn Féin evolved from the Provisional IRA as the political wing of the political IRA. That's a historical fact. And they promised an Irish first. I had never any impression from them, but that their intention when they got the United Ireland was Ireland first, that the Irish would be first, and that our culture would be protected and all of that. Now, I accept that the Provisional IRA is now disbanded as a result of the work of John Cheslan and the work of Sinn Féin and Gerry Adams to bring and get rid of the guns and all that, and go the peaceful route. That's to be admired. So when I make the criticism about killing Gardaí and army people in the Republic, it is that it's sad that this should be in vain. This should be in vain. Now, there are still activists, and I have to accept that Declan Kearney, the man I made the original video about, and Matt Carthy here in Cavan, and Pauline Tully, They cannot be held responsible for distance now that are on the go, and that this is always nearly a feature of Ireland. They cannot be held responsible for them. That's not the point I am making. There was an attempt on the lives of policemen in the north the other day. But there is these current few people who are still carrying on the struggle, as they call it. Now, the provisional IRA fought for the Brits out. They wanted the British out. That was their clear agenda. And it was always thought that once we get them out, they'd settle down, and if they had a say and they had a political majority, they'd let the country be ruled with everyone, Northern Unions and everybody having their say. That was what we were led to believe, and that people like me would be given a say as well, and be able to try and wish for what we wanted for our future generations. So the question begs then is, what about the current IRA activists, the current, as they call them, terrorists, or whatever you like to call them? What are they fighting for? If they had to succeed in killing police service of Northern Ireland men, yes, the other day, thank God they didn't, which would, but if they had to succeed, what was it for? I'd like them to tell me that, or I'd like some of the sympathisers to tell me. Was it to put the old dream of a free, independent Ireland, with all the shades of traditional people who have been here up to date involved? Or was it to fill the country with at least 50,000 migrants from all over the world annually? Is that what they are fighting for? Are these people fighting for hotels in Carrickmacross, in Dundalk, in Navan, in Kingscourt, in Dublin, in East Wall in Dublin, where there's a protest at the moment? Are they fighting for those things? Is that what they're fighting for? The bailing out of dysfunctional hotel owners, the pushing out of their children from school, making our children, future generations, ignorant that they can't get into school. Is that what they are laying down the bombs for? And that's the question I ask Sinn Féin, because they were there, they've been there, they've done that. I had thought that their plan was the revival of our hopes for a Gaelic Ireland self-determined, a tolerant Gaelic Ireland. There'd have to be some immigration in it and all of that. But what's happening is somebody, and it's not us, it's the EU to some degree, but it's also people like George Soros and these other people, are putting these people in here hook, line and sinker. Every time there's a war, Ireland has to take all the refugees, and they're not being taken in Iceland, they're not being taken in Malta, and they're being sent back in Malta. There is a more structured plan, and none of this was put to the people. Now, I remember an IRA man, I'm not calling him a terrorist, he did, the poor fella. He was a ruthless killer. He was reared in a decent agricultural family in Monaghan, but he was ruthless. He had been brainwashed into this, and he was Seamus McIlwain. He was killed way back about 1989 in a British ambush up around Rosslea in County Fermanagh, where he was coming to put off a bomb or do something. But he said himself, I'll put the Brits out of the north if I have to kill every single one of them myself. That's how determined he was. And this fellow would work on a building site. He wasn't a lazy chap. Anyway, I'd love if I had to be able to say to him, do you know something, Seamus? The day will come when we'll be minorities in our own land, when we won't even know our towns and villages, and they'll bring in the whole world from all over the world in here, and whether we like it or whether we don't. Another guy was Jim Lina. He was from a council estate in Monaghan, and he was a fairly ruthless. He led the North Monaghan outfit, and they killed Norman Strong and his son, the Speaker of the Northern Ireland House, and he was shot dead at Loughgall. And I make no issue on that, but I just wonder, I'd say he would be more communist, cultural Marxist to some degree. He had contempt. Seamus McIlwain did not have contempt for the Republic. But I'd say, I'm not so sure about Lina, but I even wonder, would he want this happening? And I don't know any ex very active people. They were very, very active people. And so the Irish we were never a majority on the island of Ireland. The Irish people were a majority after independence in the 1930s, 1940s, and indeed they gave the whole thing away to the Catholic Church and torture young girls, got on Magdalene laundries and all that was horrible. But they were never actually in majority in the north. So there was always part of Ireland where the Irish were not a majority. And it looks like the policy of the present Sinn Féin party is that we never will be a majority. We never will be a majority in our own country because we're going to have up to 50,000 migrants, if not 100,000 migrants, a year into this country. And I am opposed to that. We have enough. We have enough. Now, they welched on they swallowed the old cash crash renewable energy scam, a complete scam. Sinn Féin fell for it, hook, line and sinker with Arlene Foster, who also fell for it. And they're 100% behind the climate change hoax. That's only a hoax. Most people know that's a hoax. And they'll not comply with the law on the assessment of pylons and renewable energy and all that. And they'll never release us from the COVID hoax lockdowns, because that's the track of the communists. Lock the people down. They will never release us from that unless we break out of it. Don't forget, it was a colleague of mine who took a court case to the European Court that ended the lockdowns in the Republic of Ireland because they couldn't justify them. They didn't know why they were doing it. So it's a case of the bold Fenian men. The bold Fenian men are actually Greens with Patrick's Day hats on them. They're actually Greens with the Green Party with Patrick's Day hats. There's no difference. There's no difference in any of them. They're all the same. And all of that death, all of those Gardaí, all of those that army soldier, and all the northern people that died, and all of those, what did they die for? What did they die for? At least, if the people I named in the video gave their lives to assuage, is that the word, or to the sacrifice that was demanded by violent Irish republicanism to gain their goals, which they're very near. They are probably nearly the largest party in the north, and they're heading for being one of the largest party in the south. And at this stage, we're kind of on that slope that could lead to a united Ireland. I'm not too sure, but there's not the same discrimination against nationalists as there was. So wouldn't it be nice now if we had this and everyone rode along to make our country great and rear a new generation that never knew what this violence was, with free from drugs, dwelling on education, with abortion limited as much as possible, and with the Irish people number one. And then certain amount of people brought here, strict control by us, because the proclamation said we declare the Ireland to be the ownership of its people, not the people from anywhere else. We were supposed to own it. We were supposed to be controlling it. But we're not controlling it. And the EU, we never conceded to the EU that they could do this. We never conceded to anyone. But even without the EU, the parties in Dáil Éireann in our government would be doing it anyway. They love this. So what annoys me, and the reason I attack Sinn Féin so much, is that their promise was not this. That's not what their followers thought they were going to deliver when they got the Brits out. Ooh, Brits out. That's not what they thought. Now they're beginning to see, and I hope that people are beginning to cop out of them, that they were a sham. This was all for another agenda altogether. Altogether. They only used the activists, they only used the like of the fellas that did all the shooting for them, and all took all the risk and lost their legs and limbs, and the people, innocent people who lost their legs and limbs and were killed, and Oma bomb and all that. They were only using that to get to where they wanted to be, which is like Castro, with all this controls everywhere and all this green shutdown, carbon taxes, and the attack on farming, and preferring the data centers by the big foreign companies. This is totally contrary to the image they painted for us. Now, the other thing, just on a minute or two more, folks, is this. What are we going to do? I believe in the Republic of Ireland, and indeed in Northern Ireland, I believe there are about 40% of bleeding hearts. I was talking to a person today, and he agreed with this. There are these bleeding hearts. Oh, we have to be welcoming. We were welcomed everywhere we went. We bloody well worked anywhere we went. And we have to be welcoming. So we're never going to change them. The question I would put to them, are you prepared for 500 million? That's what the Swedish Foreign Minister told our Taoiseach Micheál Martin in the European Parliament. You'll have 500 million who have expressed the desire to come to Europe, and I'd say no other country will take them as much. We will be getting half of them. Because the word out there for migrants and people who have nothing everywhere else, or who want to get out from low living standard, is that Ireland is welcoming. Ireland is the place to go. You go there, you'll get all you want, and they're coming here in droves. That's the position. Okay. So the thing is there 40%? Is there 50%? Well, if there's 50% of bleeding hearts, that means there's 50% who are not. Why can we not pick up those votes? Why can we not pick up the votes? I believe the reason is that the National Party is too scary. It's too much of a Hitler-type party. It's perceived as going back to the time of De Valera, John Charles McQuaid, and this dictatorial way. I don't think that's going to wash. And the other thing is the Irish Freedom Party is leave the EU, where it should be just a referendum on that, and that referendum will fail because the Irish people do not want to go through Brexit at this stage. They make a point. The proper policy for a new party, or any party, would be that we clear up the migration, take control of it, we fix our housing, we get rid of our green energy baloney, get rid of the carbon tax, no more data centres, end the wind farm scam, end the pylon scam, end giving 6 billion to non-governmental organisations that can sit back and live off our taxes. Those are the issues that would make it, that would probably get you elected. Because in a constituency where there's 5 seats, you only need 1 out of the 5. You only need 1/5. You only need about 18% of the vote or less to get your seats. And we could, or a party like that, could possibly get 7 or 8 seats in Double Ireland and dislodge the Greens and end up that you'd have some degree of a balance of power. That could be done. But unfortunately, we're not ready for it. There's an old saying in agriculture about the weather and the work. There'll always come a day if you're ready for it. And our day will come, but we will not be ready for it. That's my fear. So I hope I've cleared up that. I hope I've expressed why I'm so angry with Declan Carney. You are reneging on the promises that were implicit in the campaign of your party and the people who resorted to violence to achieve their objective. You're reneging on it. That was never what the public that were supporting you and those who did wanted. That was never what they wanted, and that certainly wasn't what the American Yankees give the money for. So folks, that's my point. You can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. This is a hot subject, and I hope I've dealt with it fairly and as best as I can, and to be fair to everyone and unbiased. So we'll see you back for something else soon. Thank you.